Welcome back to the Obsidian Projects podcast, SOS, sharing our stories. We invite guests from all different walks of life to come on the show to share their experiences and their stories in a hope to inspire and empower people around the globe that could possibly be suffering in similar situations or can relate to the stories in some way, shape, or form. We'd like to thank our sponsors of the podcast who provide us with amazing support. First off, getsome.com.au, who supply Jocko Malk, a protein powder that I personally use. It's absolutely fantastic, does exactly what it says on the tin, and most importantly, tastes fantastic too. And you can get 10% off with our discount code OP10. And secondly, our beautiful hosts, Cafe Royale in Coburn, that provide us with a beautiful space full of beautiful energy to host these amazing stories and share these amazing and beautiful experiences. Now to the next episode. Before we get started on this latest episode of the Obsidian Projects SOS, if you or anyone you know does relate to any of the information shared in these stories, we do have some helpful numbers and contact details right at the very end of the episode, so you can either skip ahead, come back and listen to the rest of the episode later, or wait right till the end of the episode and those numbers will be there. Okay, so welcome back to the Obsidian Project podcast, episode number 11. And for the first time, I'm jumping on a Zoom call, going online with somebody not in Australia, which is awesome, an awesome experience to be sharing. And I'm joined by Kyerra Johnson from the We Speak Foundation over in America. So I just want to welcome you to all our listeners in Australia. And it's going to be a really fun conversation. We've been sat chatting for an hour already before we jumped on live. So I hope we're going to be able to have as much fun on the actual recorded podcast as we've had off air so far. So welcome.
Hello there, Joey. I'm super excited to be here. I've been waiting for this for quite some time, or we've been working towards this together for some time. So
yeah, that's right.
It's good to.
Yeah, it's good. It's good to finally jump on. We do apologize if anything, like you said, this is the first time we've jumped on Zoom. So if there's any hiccups along the way, I do apologize, but it's all going to be fun and games from here on in. So, Kyerra, tell me a little bit about what the We Speak Foundation is all about.
Okay, so thank you so much for asking. We Speak Foundation ultimately birthed out of me wanting to be able to motivate people, because I come from a very impoverished city, the city of East St. Louis, Illinois, and where the average person there probably makes less than $17,000. You don't see a lot of resources there. There is an extremely high mental health rate as far as, suicide, domestic violence, and things as such. As well as the murder rate is extremely high there, and a lot of personal things that have gone on in my life, as far as losing my parents, my mother and my stepfather to a homicide suicide on December 21st, 1998, which was 4 days before Christmas, and something that both me and my brother witnessed. And through that, trying to push forward and realizing that a lot of our friends were also experiencing a lot of the heartaches that, we too in our home were experiencing. It pushed me to want to motivate people, motivate, but do something in action about it. And that's where we are with We Speak Foundation.
That's awesome. I love when things can get created out of, trauma, pain, bad situations, but such beauty can rise from, all the terribleness that goes on in the world. It's great to see things like this come out of the ashes of what's not just happened in people's lives, but into helping communities like what you're doing. Like, some of the things that you mentioned before we jumped on, like the stuff that your foundation does, it's so supporting to the community, which I think is getting more and more lost, like as time goes by, as things like social media as beautiful as it is, that it allows us to, you know, us to be talking from different sides of the world, you know, it also has its non-community based stuff. Like it takes away from that person to person contact, the care for the people that are actually around you. And
Right.
yeah, as more as we become, you know, involved in that sort of a world, it's great to see things that are starting to grow, like your foundation, for example, to still keep the community together, still know that there's people out there to help, to support, to show love, to talk to. It's really, really good to see. Really good to see.
You know what? It's really great to be able to go out and do it, because we do our biggest thing is just doing volunteer work, and that's how we're trying to gain most of our you know, our people to just kind of chime in and help with us on the donation end, to help, you know, push the things that we are trying to do, because it is different. When I was a kid and I was growing up, it was so much fun to go outside and play.
Yeah.
It was a ton of fun to go out and be amongst family and friends. And we slowly see this birth of like social media come into play. And it's not that we all of a sudden hate what we used to do, but we found a new way to communicate. But because it's not physical, we've left that part behind. So it's just like, I went outside to play with my kids. And it's like, oh, I like that. I love that. And it's like, yay, now we're doing it. Now we're community based. And it's just like community organizing or being together cannot be done by just liking a button. You have to physically go out there and be with people, be with your community.
Yeah. I really like that. I mean, it's something, I guess, for myself, I've only just really realized that starting to shrink in my own life is, you know, the community. I had a little bit of a different experience for my bachelor party just before I got married last year. It's not your usual bachelor party that a lot of people think of. No hookers, no cocaine, no strippers, nothing like that. It was me and a group of mates went off into the woods, into the forest area up in Australia here, and we spent the night in a teepee around a fire. Just a lot of lads, and on a piece of land that was quite spiritual, had a lot of ceremonies done on there before, and we took some psychedelics to give ourselves a little bit of a spiritual journey. And the guy that was running this thing was awesome, like really, really awesome. Probably one of the best experiences I've ever had in my life. But he said something that stuck with me. And he said that one thing that's missing and starting to go outdated, that is a word that has been jumbled up over time, it's community. And it's like we're slowly starting to lose community, but we're starting to lose the essence of where community came from, which is common unity. And I was like, wow. And because I was a little bit tripping as well at the same time, I was like, whoa, that just blew my mind. But it's so true. It's like common unity of the people that are around you is slowly starting to fade because we're going too internal. We're choosing to voice ourselves over social media and go to social media to solve problems and go to the internet to solve mental health issues rather than talking to a friend or going seeking something out like your foundation, for example. It's that unity between us that we're starting to lose. So it shows like the beauty that can come out of things that you're creating, which is so good.
Have you ever seen, you've seen I Am Legend, right? Just, I mean, on the communication scale, and you see like in the movie, like this is how important physical contact is. Or if you've seen like Castaway, movies like that, where communication is so critical to have, like, you know, somebody in the physical that they're like making characters like in their movie. Like I think in Castaway, he has like a soccer ball or a volleyball that he like makes his friend. And it's because like you need these bonds in your life. It helps you. And, you know, you start taking away those physical bonds, then you start to see this uprise in things like mental health, for instance, or, you know, nobody knows why. They're just kind of like, I don't know why I'm so sad. And it's like, have you tried talking to someone? Just a little bit.
Well, I think this is one of my, like, as I'm starting to, you know, understand a little bit more about like the world that is mental health, is there's this growing bugbear that I've got, that is, we don't get taught, you know, when we go to school, like, we get thrown maths, you know, mathematics, English, sciences, you name it, technologies, anything. You get thrown all this education at us. And it's all geared towards trying to help us secure a job later in life. But it may be starting to happen a little bit more now. But I mean, when I was going to school, there was nobody ever taught me about my emotions. Nobody ever taught me about, you know, if somebody passes away, you know, what do you do? You know, if you get into an argument with a friend, or you break up with a boyfriend or a girlfriend, like, you know, how do you manage that? You know, even having an argument with, you know, somebody close to you, you know, how are you supposed to manage those feelings and emotions? And it's, I think it's something that's missing, you know, as we start to get more intellectual understanding ourselves. It's something that's really missing in our lives, is being able to understand how to deal with that.
Yeah. I I don't want to say I hate that, but when you see how much damage it does from not talking, like, it decreases lifespans. It causes stroke, heart attack, high blood pressure. Like, all of these things can be caused literally by holding in areas when we were supposed to grieve, or if we don't talk about things, we go about things misunderstood, you know. I've said depression is literally a feeling that went unchecked for a lot of people, that nobody talked to you about, that you, I imagine this, had not one person sat there and talked to me about what was going on with my, you know, with the death of my parents, witnessing that and going about everyday life. On my own, I was spiraling out of control for years. But it took someone consistently being like, okay, let's get on the straight and narrow. Let's talk about it. I'm going to make you talk about it. And it was like, I hate you for making me talk about it. But when you can start a foundation, and when you can say, hey, okay, I know how to do it now. Like, okay, we can help more people because with me, like, let's bring this all together. Now it's just a matter of what? Getting people to get together.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's amazing what just that small gesture from other people, like sitting around in a group, or, you know, whether it's even just talking to somebody on the phone, you know, those small little gestures from people that you have things in common with, or even if you don't, you know, it really helps. Even just, you may not think it's going to help. I mean, for someone that's been through, you know, a pretty, I would say, a strong state of depression, was you know, the last thing I wanted to do was talk to somebody. But the best thing for me was to talk to somebody. It's, you know, I guess there's so many people out there that in that same situation, you know. It's the last thing you want to do is see people, go and meet people, go and sit in groups and talk about things, where the best thing for you is actually that. But it's that, if you're not encouraged, you're not given that little bit of show of support to push yourself out of there, then that's where, you know, that spiral will just continue going down and down.
You know, you're right. The one thing that I can name that is the biggest, I want to say, like, the hardest part about our tour is to help people like where I come from East St. Louis, people that are like myself, get over this traditional understanding of what mental health is. I'll be honest with you, for years I didn't believe in mental health. Like, I thought this was like some hoax, like, you know, like just something that, like, you know, for prescription purposes we're pushing out, like, you know, this new idea of like OCD, everybody's got anxiety and all these other things. And I didn't believe it, because it was just like, you can get over that. Like, you know, like you can just, you know, just keep living life. Like you'll get over it. But
Yeah.
the truth is like this girl in one of my classes, I think it was a psychology class, like she checked me. Like, you know, she was Black. She, you know, looked like me, everything. And she was
Yeah.
like, it is real. And I was like, she's from Alabama. Like, I'm not going to trust that. Like, you know, here, the real believe everything. And when I thought about my history of how our family responded to our situation, there is no crying where we're from. It's shunned upon in a way,
Yeah.
especially if, not just men, but especially for African American women. If you cry, you seem weak. I remember going to my mother's funeral at 8 years old, saying that I would not cry. I didn't want to cry because it was just like, I want to look strong. Like, this is not hurting me. And it took years for me to learn to cry. I was embarrassed by it because it was like, I don't want to look weak in front of
Yeah.
anyone. But that's what we've been taught. I remember you can get hit for crying where I come from. It's like, what are you crying for? It's just like seriously. And it's just because it's just like nobody wants to deal with that. Let's just keep pushing on through life as if it never happened. Boom, you're dead at 65 with a stroke.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like, you got to talk about it.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. And another thing we were talking about, like just before we jumped on, was like I suppose the difference in culture between, you know, Australia, England, and where you're from as well in America. It's you know, I would say I come from like a white community. Like I had black friends growing up and things like that, but it was like crying was just something that's you know, it's just part of life. Like you know, it's okay to cry. You know, kids cry. You know, there's no real punishment until like you get into your teens and you hit the schoolyard and things like that. And it's like, what are you doing that for? Why are you crying, you pussy? You know, that's when I suppose it starts to get, you know, sort of brought in there in terms of, you know, the punishment for wanting to show your emotions. And but it's still not as a harsh reality as I think, like you know, communities that we were talking about, like where you come from, for example, that it's every day. It's like it's in the street, it's at home, it's, you know, there's no safe space where you can unleash those emotions, if you know what I mean.
Right. It, we were previously talking about this when I talked
Mm,
about my freshman year in college. I'm excited.
yeah.
You know, actually sophomore year in college, super excited. I'm at the University of South Alabama. All of my friends there. I leave home, like, you know, it's. I think I felt like how it was supposed to feel, exciting, new. I'm on my own. I can do whatever I want, say what I want. And
Mm,
I'm sitting in the caf with a group of friends. You know, one of my close friends, she says, "Hey, aren't you from East St. Louis?" And I said, "Yeah." And she said, "Do you know that person, like, on the news?" And it's CNN. And I look up, and there were, I think it was 2 or 3 girls that got shot in a car. And I think that they were all related to each other. And I think on that same day, one of the girls that I graduated middle school with and high school with, she ended up being shot in the head right outside of the projects, you know, where she lived. And it just kept going. It was like this ball of fury where one of my next friends, I remember I had a party that year, like 2008, 2 years later, he's walking down the street, boom, gets shot in the back of the head. And do we know who committed these crimes? Some may know, but then there's
mm,
like this no snitching clause, so people refuse to talk about the issues or who did what. So the murders go unsolved for years,
yeah.
and it's so common, and you do become numb. Like now, I hate to say it, I'll see somebody that dies, and unless I had to kind of chalk it down to like, have I had a physical contact with this person? Did we hang out? Were we friends? You know, to sit and cry about it, because there's so many. It's like you'd be crying like every other week, and it's like
Mm,
you don't want to do that.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's different. And to know that you guys, you know, where you are, like say in the UK, or like you don't experience that, it's like, how we're all really great countries.
Yeah.
Wrong somewhere. You know, I
Yeah.
need to come to Joey is and hang out.
Yeah. 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 So yeah, it's very, very different over here. Like, you know, it's like yeah, again, like we were saying before, it was you know, I think I saw someone get stabbed once when I was out on a night out. But apart from that, never even like I heard a gunshot in the street. Like guns and that sort of like death is just not, that's not a thing. It's
Wow.
just not part of life. So it's to hear that, you know, not just it's happened for yourself, but that's happening for probably hundreds and thousands of people, not just across America, but all over the world with gun crime and things like that, and poverty, and you know, it just seems to get brushed under the rug, and it doesn't even matter.
Mm-hmm. It's when I think about 1960, you know, we go through this era of the war on poverty, right?
Mm,
And there are a lot of issues that people don't realize that come with poverty. It's trauma. Like you have to realize where you are in order to be in poverty in the first place. Like you've obviously met some hiccups in your life or had some like, you know, some that you caught from like, you know, your parents or something like that. The
mm,
Vicious Cycle of Poverty by Malcolm X is like, you know, you live in a poor neighborhood with poor teachers, you know, everybody's poor. We're all working together, and we come out, America says like, okay, we're coming out with this war on poverty, and we're going to be pushing out like, you know, we're going to help out with food assistance, like, and welfare assistance and Section 8, all of these different things to help. But throwing money at any situation has never been the solution for a situation. It literally just
mm,
kind of hushes the situation up for some time. But
yeah.
those problems still persist when people are still dying every day, because mom's still trying not to live on those means of income, but trying to get a good job or trying to go to school. You have a young kid who's now subjected to outside, you know, gang violence, and a lot of single parents, a lot of dads are incarcerated. How do you bring that family together? How do you do any of these things? But throwing money at it doesn't fix it.
Yeah.
You know, there has to be a resource there. There has to be somebody that's willing to say, let's go in, let's study what's going on, and let's fix the real issues. And a lot of it is simply mental health and resources. Talk about it.
Yeah, yeah, it's so true. That's so true. So where do you think for yourself then, like I know we've spoken about, you know, what happened to your mum and your stepdad and then growing up and going through college. At what point was it for you that you think you really started to challenge this idea that mental health was an actual thing? Like what was the
I got
turning point? Sorry?
I got married. I got
You got
married.
married. Yeah, that'll do
Over.
it. That'll do it.
He's my ex-husband now.
Yeah.
And right. But being in that particular relationship opened up my eyes, not because he is some demonized monster or anything like that,
Mm,
but more because I saw a personality trait that I had seen before.
mm,
And it reminded me that of my father. And I was like, people can act the same.
mm,
And I know it sounds like really, like, you know, like really dumb. Like, what do you mean? Like, you know, like there are personality traits that people have. Like narcissism is a personality trait, and it is very, very real.
mm,
And a lot of people experience it. And when I started going through situations in my marriage that would lead to some of the same things that I was able to refer back to with my mom's relationship with my dad, that marriage left me out completely on my feet. Like I was out of a car, I was like, you know, pregnant, and I had no one there. All, you know, all of your issues from your past life. I'm 22. This is all at 22. And, you know, because on one end, it's like your family says, like, you know, especially women, they're just like, you know, you should go out and you should get married. and that's going to be a gateway to help your future grow. So here I am, a junior in college, thinking like, okay, well, the next step is marriage,
Yeah.
and this is gonna, and it was wrong. It was completely wrong, and it's because nobody knew what they were talking about. Everybody had this idea of what life should have gone like, and no one at any point has stopped to say, what is your mental health like? Are you going to be equipped for marriage? Are you going to be equipped to go out into the world? And the truth was, I wasn't. I didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
And I found myself at the bottom of the floor looking up and asking God, okay, what do I need to do now? Because I can't get any lower. And so now I'm here, and it's like, all right, well, this, pain pain can turn something positive, but man, you really got to go through the trenches sometimes.
Yeah. Would you say that's where, would you think that possibly you had been suffering from mental health issues for a long, long time previous to that? Or is this where you first realized the pain of the mental health, like the emotions started to really come out from it?
So definitely before that.
Yeah.
Wow. It was, when I say child from hell, it was. And the reason why was because, like I told you, my mom is the youngest. She's the youngest of 10 children. She comes from Friars Point, Mississippi, moves to Illinois, gets pregnant with me. My biological father goes to the Navy. She meets a new guy. He sweeps her off her feet. And, she's starting to become a doctor. All these great things are happening. And, ultimately,
Yeah. That's okay.
bring me back in.
Yeah,
Bring me back in.
yeah. It's like, obviously, when you first realize that, mental health starting to become a part of your life, like you're starting to realize it's like,
Okay.
wow, there's like a different opportunity, so to speak. Sometimes it's like a deer in the headlights moment, and you get all this massive flood of emotion come through that it's like, whoa, man, I've been this way for so long, and there's another way. Or
Right.
there's sometimes it's like you're going through this emotional stuff, and it's just like, nah, can't deal with sadness right now, push it to one side, I've got to be this person. Or it's like, nah, can't deal with anger right now, push it to one side because I've got to be this person. It's, I mean, from my experience with having a few different conversations with people, these are the two main things. It's like, sometimes you just realize, and it's like, bam, it's like, holy shit. And then other
Yeah.
times it's like, man, I've just been burying this my whole life. I've
Right.
known that I've had it, but I'm just having to deal with it, kind of thing.
Yeah. And I think that's why I was hoping to get to, but I say that line so much, which is like, what happened with my parents, because people have to know, like, the depth of it, which is like, this is a situation when my parents did die, it was a huge custody battle. You got my biological father who comes into the picture, my stepdad's mother, my aunt, and my mom's mom. And all of these people are like, we want these kids. And so East St. Louis is a poor area, but I told you, like, my stepfather's mom was very well off, very middle class family in East St. Louis. So we ended up staying with my step grandmother. And it was hard because we lived in a house where the entire incident occurred. Everything that we watched was in that house. And it was hell for her because I couldn't appreciate who she was just because of what her son had did to my mom. So that meant rebelling at all costs. It meant, if you say black, it's white. If you say, whatever it is, it's the opposite. I don't want to agree with you. We're not on the same page. And that led to, like just doing all kinds of things, like lashing out, hanging out with boys, bad relationships, just a ton of things that come from misguided emotions. And it's heart-wrenching because I did deal with it for a long time. I fought in school. I was suspended literally like every other week. And it was just like, you go and you tell somebody like, hey, these kids are, picking on me. And they're like, well, don't let them do it again. And it's like, so you're fighting and you're fighting and you're fighting in the midst of dealing with all these issues. um just keeping it honest and blunt there, a lot of women, especially when you go through such traumas, you don't know how to deal with it. Sex becomes an issue, alcohol becomes an issue, drugs become an issue, and it seems like it's embarrassing, but those are the symptoms. You know
Yeah,
what I
yeah.
mean?
I mean, it's the reality of it at the end of the day. I mean, I think that's what a lot of people sort of hold themselves behind, is they don't want to feel embarrassed about admitting these
Mm.
things. Like, you know, I had a conversation the other day with one of my like I do some personal training sessions with the boxing, and I had a chat with one of my clients the other day, and we got onto talking about like about pornography, and
Mm-hmm.
it's like it's a hard subject for people to bring up. Like, you know, it's a massive problem for a lot of people, is addiction to pornography. And it's like, you know, people don't want to talk about it, people don't want to bring it up because they're hiding behind this embarrassment. It's like, I mean, who really wants to admit, it's like, yeah, I spend 3 hours a day sat behind my computer, you know, just me and the computer. It's a hard, really hard conversation to have. So I think, like, to help and to have environments where, you know, it's like, man, we, you know, like talking freely like we are now, if you know what I mean, to be able to listen and go, and there's people out there, it's like, it doesn't matter what you say to them, there's no embarrassment, there's no judgment, there's no anything. It's just, man, I'm just happy that you're talking to me. Like, it's, I can tell you've been
Right.
holding this stuff in for a while, you know. And
Yeah.
it's, so it's, there is that where I suppose, yeah, people
I,
do struggle, you know, with that sort of conversations.
when we talked earlier, social media doesn't help us,
Yeah,
you
it's
know,
true.
because have you realized like how many things have become like the subject of embarrassment? Like, or, you know, people are bullied now, like, you know, it's almost to say like you have to walk in like this little bubble, or at least post like you're in this bubble, because if not, people will judge you. We live in a society now where we post everything that we do,
Yeah.
and we don't post everything that we stay out of the limelight. Nobody knows what's going on with us. We're cast out to the darkness.
Yeah.
But we're doing it so that we can feel this level of esteem, or feel like this element of happiness, because that's all it is.
Mm.
When you look at, you know, social media, or you look at Instagram, you know, all these different channels that we have, when you make, I don't know, you know, what is it? Long post alert, testimony Tuesday, and you have this really long post, and you're hoping that, hey, I poured my heart out.
Mm.
What are you guys gonna say? And it's
Yeah.
like. You don't get enough likes, you're depressed. And if you do get enough likes, then you're doing good, and you want to keep posting, and it becomes this addiction that we're looking for that's really not there. We've lost this element of like people interacting. We've lost a lot of things. And
Mm.
man, like you
Yeah.
said, if we could just talk about things, if we could just communicate like we're communicating now about real issues, not rely on the like button or the
Yeah.
double tap, man, we'd be so much cooler. We'd be a lot cooler people. We have a lot better experiences. I think I thought my going into my 30s that my experiences would be way bigger than what they were. But society changed as I got
Yeah.
older. And it was like the things that I saw that people were doing, like, you know, you hit 25 and like, you know, I mean, I had a party, but it wasn't like all these people, like, you know, like your family, everybody's there because they don't have
Yeah.
anything else to do and waiting for this to happen. That element is gone. It seems like that element is gone.
Yeah, it's true. And I mean, like, you can't really show love of a like on an Instagram post, or even though it's a picture of a heart, you know,
Mm-hmm.
it's still, there's no, you can't feel that person's love, is it? Because it's so generic. Like, I could click a heart, and then the person next to me could click a heart, and then it's like, well, you know, do you actually love it, or are you just clicking the heart because that's how you want them to feel? You
Mm-hmm.
know, and it's like,
Yeah.
well, but it's I actually read and listened to as well a study on social media and how it's becoming like the biggest addiction in our modern world. And they did some tests on a group of alcoholics, a group of I think it was meth addicts, and just people that use social media. And so they studied like the brain patterns of like what happens when they're drinking, and then what happens to the brain when they need alcohol or they need this hit, and there's a massive need for dopamine. And when they get this hit of whatever it is, whether it's alcohol, whether it's a sale, like say the sales industry is very similar, whether it's meth or whatever drug, it has almost identical responses within the brain to getting a like on Facebook. And it's basically the body, what's happening is this, you get absorbed in this world of social media, which is basically, like you said, I put something up and I'll wait for the response. And this is how you feel. And if you don't get this response, you feel this unworthiness, this lack of love that you're creating in your head. But when you get this likes, let's say you get 200-300 likes on a Facebook post or something like that, you're like, oh my God, I feel amazing. I feel great. You know, this is so many people love what I'm doing. This is so cool. I'm going to put more out. Then you put another picture out and you only get 10 likes. And then your mental health just goes straight down because your body's relying on this dopamine chemical.
Yeah.
So the history behind it all, of where this all came from, I don't know whether you know much about this, is that basically in the human body, like when we were living off the land, so to speak, these chemicals are sort of developed through evolution to basically help us get through life. So, for example, dopamine is a chemical that's created as a response to keep moving, to keep going. So, for example, like in a hunter-gatherer sort of world, let's say you're going out picking fruit for the day. You go in and you've been walking for a while and you get this feeling, it's like, oh, am I ever going to find somewhere to get fruit? And all of a sudden, in the distance, you can see an apple tree. So your body gives you this hit of dopamine to go, oh, keep going, you know, there's apples out there. So you feel good. It's like, yes, I'm almost there. And then you see the tree again, you get bigger, you get another hit of dopamine until you get to the tree. You get to pick the apples and you feel good. You feel good about yourself because, yes, I've got the apples. Good. I've done a good job, right? So there's this other chemical in the body called serotonin, which basically is your long-term feel-good chemical. So your dopamine's your short-term, the serotonin's a long-term. And basically this is activated is like when you've got all these apples, like you got massive basket full of apples, and then you take these apples and then you give them back to the community so they can all eat and share these apples. You then get a massive hit of serotonin from seeing all these people enjoying what you've done for that day. And it's because you're sharing it with the community. So the problem is when you look at things like social media, there's no opportunity to get that hit of serotonin because you have no understanding of what your post is actually doing for the people in the community. Like you could get 100 likes and it'd be, okay, yeah, great. It's like, you know, I've obviously put up a good picture and it's kind of makes sense to people and some people have resonated with it, but you don't really know what it's done for them because you're not getting to see the beauty in what it's creating. Whereas having a conversation with someone like you now, explaining to things, talking about different things, and you can see people's emotions and seeing the joy of experience, you know, it helps. And I think right at the end of this thing that I was listening to, it was by a guy called Simon Sinek. He said in his own life, he experienced it in a different way. He said, like, I think he saw a guy crossing the road and he dropped his wallet and his books or something like that, and they were all over the road. And he stopped to help this guy pick his stuff up. And the guy was like, "Oh man, thanks so much. I really appreciate you stopping to help." So the guy who dropped his books felt good. He felt good for doing a good thing. And then someone came up to him as he was walking down the street and said, "Man, I just saw what you did for that guy. That's, you know, that was such a nice thing." So that guy also felt good. So this the serotonin that's been created is not just by the two people involved, but it's by the whole community that's been able to see the beauty in what's being created. whereas that does not happen in social media.
Right.
I
And
like to
people
waffle
try
on.
it.
Yeah.
Have you seen it though? But people will try for that serotonin, because when you look at when people say, DM me for more information, and it's because, like, okay, I'm offering something, I'm trying to help. I do want to see the fruits of that labor. I do want to see people receive this help. Like, I want them to smile because I'm helping them, and, you know, vice versa. Like, you want it to be that way. It is very powerful how social media has worked. I can remember social media not ever being a factor. In 2008, I was graduating, and I was like, okay, I'll make a Facebook once I graduate, you know, from high school, and I get ready to go into college, right? Because that's usually when everybody was getting it.
Yeah.
And I remember I just couldn't get with it. I was just like, so I just go on here and I say a little bit about my day and I go away. And they will, yeah. And then people say, oh, hi. You know, people used to comment. Like, remember that was a thing? Like, on your
Yeah.
birthday, you would have hundreds of people literally just taking the time to say happy birthday.
Yeah.
And as we progressed and social media became one of the only, for some people, communicating factor to the outside world, wow, do you see a change? Because even in myself, being absolutely honest, I remember I was sitting in my car outside of a photography studio, because I was doing photography at the time. And I've got this little kid, and I'm working all these hours, you know, trying, you know, doing sessions on the side, just all kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And here it is. I, you know, went to the University of South Alabama. I studied political science and criminal justice. And I'm here at a photography studio, right? And so I'm looking on my Facebook, and I see, like, my friends, like, you know, that, you know, the year before me, that, I mean, they're like graduating from Ivy Leagues, and they're going to these really huge schools, and they're coming out, and they're in business magazines now. And I'm at a photography studio, you know, and doing sessions on the side with a little kid. And I'm bawling. So I call my mentor, and I'm like, look, where did I screw up at? You know, all my friends are here, and why is it that everybody has seemed to accelerate more than I have? And she checked me, and she was just like, listen, like, I did not start law school until, you know, I was 28 years old. And she was like, then I got my law degree. She was like, but I had my kids first. And a lot of parents do it the other way. Like, they have their kids once they're established, but then they have to work, you know, 60, 70 plus hours a week with a kid. You know, I had it the other way around. And it came to me, it dawned on me, what she was telling me, which is that everybody's path in life is different. But if you're only accustomed to this idea of what social media has to offer your life, you get sucked into not ever doing enough, which causes this massive state of depression. I mean, it's unbearable, because you're constantly measuring to other people, when the truth about it is it could very well just be crap. You know, like, so what, she got a degree, you know, but it took her 7 years to get it. She failed I don't know how many classes. There's no telling how many F's are behind it, who she knew to get the job that she's in now, or how they got it. Like, you know, you don't know the behind the scenes. You just know that this person posted something and it looks way better than what I got going on. You know, taste somebody's food and it's way better than what I was eating, and it's just like, what do you mean? You know, but it's because it's theirs. It looks more appealing. But
yes, yeah, you're so right. I mean, like, you can take a picture and somebody's posted it of whatever, and you'll look at it and you'll take your own perspective of whatever that is. Like, it could be the same picture, but for me and for you could mean two completely different things. Like, for example, you could say, oh, you know, their life is so amazing. And it's like, for me, or I don't know, for somebody else could go, man, what, you know, that's harsh, man. You know, like, how come they only get to do that? Like, how come they seem to be struggling in their life? And it's this, there's no, this is the thing, there's no context behind anything that's posted on social media. So it's the individual that's seeing it will make up their mind about, you know, of what it's really about. Whereas having a conversation or getting into a group and, you know, having fun and laughing and hearing from them about their experience and sharing it face to face, it's like, oh man, I can see how happy that's made you. And then it's not about you at all. It's about them and their achievements and their passion and, you know, the love that you have for them and the love that you want to show them. Because it's like, man, I can see how much this degree means to you now. You've worked your ass off for this. And it's like, oh man, all that pain and all that trouble you've been through, man, why wouldn't you want to scream and shout at the buildings for that? I'm so happy for you. Whereas you see a picture online and you go, damn, what happened with my life? You
Mm-hmm.
know? So
Yeah.
it's, and this is one of the biggest things about like why foundations such as yours are so important. Encouraging people to come and speak is it's needed more, so much more.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for that, because I think that that is the most difficult, that part of our foundation is we do so much stuff just because, like, I mean, just for free. Like, for our first year, nobody paid for anything. We literally just wanted to see people like have a smile put on their face. Like, we would see people that were starting like new businesses and say, hey, do you need a new website? Like, we will build your website. And they're like, for free? And it's like, yes, like for free. And we would, and when people, I mean, just we had a tornado here recently, last year in Missouri, and it was like, okay, well, we're gonna go clean up, you know, the neighborhood. We're just gonna do it, and it's not about like you seeing me or anybody else seeing me, but that comfort in knowing that I'm out in my community, I'm really helping people. Like, there's so much gratification in just seeing other people say, even if, like, you know, even if they never say it to you, to see them walk away and be okay is more fulfilling than what anybody can post. Like, after I post, you know, if you post it online afterwards, it's like, okay, but you'll never know how that moment truly felt. And that's what I think our organization is hoping to be able to bring to other people, to bring a level of hope, a level of community to people, and say that if we all work together, we can get this thing done.
Yeah.
But we really physically have to do that. There's a story called The Stone Soup. I don't know if you ever heard of it. It's an amazing story. It talks about this guy, you know, who goes into town. He has a stone in his hand, and he's like, hey, I want to make some soup. And, you know, just imagine, like, everybody's kind of looking at him like, dude, you got a stone. Like, what are you going to do with that? And so, you know, guy runs out of the store. He's like, well, hey, you know, I got this big cauldron, like, you know, and we'll put some water in it. Dude, you add your stone and we'll make a stone soup. And he's like, everybody's excited. He's like, well, it's going to taste terrible. So another person out and is like, I got carrots. If that'll help you guys, I'll put in some carrots so it doesn't just taste like a stone in the soup. And then, so the whole community, you know, everybody's like checking their freezer, right? Just imagine it's like, everybody's like, well, he's got this big fat cauldron, like right in the middle of town. This guy comes in with a stone and like, let's bring out some food. And so everybody's like bringing the little bits and pieces that they have. And it's not a lot. It was never a lot to begin with. But what happens is after the entire community starts to put in a little bit of carrots, a little bit of potatoes, a little bit of meat, a little bit of this, you realize you started off with a stone, but at the very end, the stone only brought the people together to create this really huge pot of food to feed everyone.
Yeah.
And because communities have forgotten, like, hey, we need bits and pieces of everybody. We need your physical bodies to be out here to contribute to this so that we can all eat. That's where our resource is. Yeah. People think that your resource is a building, and it's like, it's not. The resource is always going to be within you and how you can take your gifts and talents and give it to other people. Yeah. We have to work on it. We have to push it. And I think that I'm in it for the long haul because somebody walked with me. Somebody had to say to me, like, this isn't the end of the world. I'm going to walk with you. I want to help you. And I want to see you get to the other side because, like you said, they get to see it. And when they see it, they can kind of say, wow. Yeah. Like, you know, like that happened. Yeah. And that's feeling.
Yeah, it's look, those experiences, I mean, like imagine like putting that in sort of a modern day situation, like, you know, just as something as simple as cleaning the community, you know, after a tornado, for example. You know, it's one thing to see it, but imagine the feeling that you get from like being a part of that. I
Mm-hmm.
think like, you know, it's walking around and you're obviously you're cleaning up, you're probably doing something that you don't really want to do. Like who really wants to go and pick rubbish up off a street and, you know, pick up all torn up old stuff out the road, you know what I mean? But then it's like, oh, I bump into you, for example, and then we start having a conversation while we're doing it. So you start in one thing, and it's like, oh man, you know, I've not seen you around here before, you know. You start having your conversation, and then all of a sudden you've cleaned up a little area, and this little old lady comes out of the house and going, oh man, you know, I thought it was going to be stuck in my house for days, and you start to see the help that it's going from, and then other people start to see that and like, how do I be a part of this? It's so cool. It's, you know, that's, it really is missing. Like we spoke, I can't remember whether it was before we came online or whether it was we were talking about before. But anyway, it was, we were talking about playing in the streets as kids, and I think that's one thing that has just gone from
Mm-hmm.
like I don't know whether it's all around the world or whether it's, you know, just in the first world countries, so to speak, but you never see kids playing out in the streets anymore.
Yeah.
Like that for me
It.
is where community started.
Yeah. Yes. You
Yeah,
are right.
it was playing hopscotch, or I don't know. We had this game called Kirby, so you get like a ball, and there'd be a few kids sat on one side of the street, and there'd be a few kids sat on the other side of the street. And when it was your turn, you got the ball, and you had to throw it to the other side of the street. And if it hit the curb and bounced back off you, then you got a point. Your team got a point. It was such a stupid game when you think about it, but that was where community started. You know, you got your own little teams, and you were having fun, you were having a laugh, and it just doesn't exist anymore because of either people are too scared to let the kids go outside because of pedophiles and muggers and rapists and fast cars and idiots, and the list goes on, or it's
Yeah.
just that social media, computer games has just drawn kids inside, and you know the community sits like, if you've got a few brothers or sisters, then you know you've got a little bit of bonding. But like I try to imagine like what my life would be if I grew up right now. Like I was an only child. It was just me and my mum for my whole childhood. And if I was stuck here, I'd be isolated. Like, I would be like on my own all the time, having to deal with everything by myself. But you know, when I was a kid, the first thing I was doing as soon as I could, coat on, bam, straight out, go and play in a school field, or you know, roam the streets, or some. I'd do anything with friends. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
that was where my community started. But
Yeah. That's the same here.
mm,
I The one good thing I will say about the city of East St. Louis is that we live and die by the phrase that we're the city of champions.
mm,
Out of this city, we have had some of the greatest people contribute to society. And closest to me, that I was able to work with and just be a part of was our track team. It was big. And if do you know who Jackie Joyner Kersey is? Just a little trivia.
no, I don't.
Oh, it's a little hard. It's okay. It's okay. Literally, world's greatest female athlete. Her record has still not been beat in the heptathlon. Her brother Al Joyner, Florence Griffith Joyner, if you've ever heard of her, FloJo, they married to her brother Al Joyner. And let's just say, like, the athletes there, when you really want to do good, you do good. And they really do. Everybody does really well when they want to. And the one thing that I can remember as a kid is just like, okay, I joined the track team. How do I know how good I am? And it was like, well, you got to race these kids on your street. Like, you know, and you get out.
Yeah.
And, it's like, I remember we would take sticks and we would use them as batons. We would be out there barefoot in the middle of the street. You know, you wait for a car to pass, and it's like, okay, I'm gonna race you from my house to the stop sign. And like, you have everybody out there, like, you got to say who won, okay? And you got to say go. And it was things like that where it was like, okay, well, I'm gonna go see you at your track meet now. Or, you know, and it was things like that that really brought us together, and you had these bonds. I mean, you would get beat up with these kids. I mean, you know, you think of, I mean, they would tell on you, they get you in trouble, all kinds of things. But man, when you get older, and granted, you'll never be able to we'll never get those moments back. We'll never get the past back. But I think about my kid when you said that, and it kind of was like, man, you're telling the truth there, because he is an only child right now. And he doesn't get to hang out with a lot of his friends. And it's because of those exact thoughts, because you're terrified. You're absolutely terrified to say, I'll let you go over their house and spend the night. No, every parent is not the same anymore. My parent would call your parent a long time ago. They would talk, and you drop off, and everything would be fine. Now it's like, I gotta do a background check, and you're affiliated. What do you do? Let me see your Facebook. Where'd you used to work at? Who's your husband? And let me take down your license plate while I'm at it before I drop my kid off, because wow, we've become that paranoid. We haven't had that much contact. And these kids now seem like they're going to grow up into a future where they have way less contact than what you and I would have had as children. And it's hurtful that they'll become accustomed to it, because it won't seem not normal to them. Like, it'll always be normal. But it's like, man, did you kind of, like our parents would say, man, I miss the good old days.
I mean, it's no coincidence that community and communication are so close in in the way you write them, in terms of the spelling and whatnot. It's like you learn to communicate through being part of a community. Like, like you said, it's if you told somebody 30 years ago that this is how we're going to talk to people, and by not actually talking to them, rather than going to, let's say, I don't know, your friends, it's like you've gone, Dave's just invited me around to stay for the weekend, to stay at his parents' house. Is that okay? And it's like, okay, let me just speak to the dad. And it's like, hold on, no, in 30 years' time, that's not how it's going to be. What you got to do is not speak to the dad, completely block them off completely, block off the whole family, basically stalk the hell out of them first, so you look like a complete weirdo. And then you decide with your aggressive behavior that it's like, my kid needs this, my kid needs that, make sure that he doesn't do this, make sure he doesn't do that. And then all of a sudden, Dave's dad's thinking you're a bit of a prick.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, sorry, I don't get a good vibe from, that kid's dad. I don't want him coming over anymore. And then now, there's friction. It's like, there's no trust. And I know there's like lots of horrible shit that goes on in the world, and it is so sad, all the terrible stuff that you hear about in the news every day, like pedophilia and all the accidents happening, and kids getting lost and things like that. But we're so consumed by it all that it just frightens us and shocks us into locking everybody down. We lock ourselves down, and then we lock everyone down that we care about.
And that's what fear is. It's so messed up, because that is the goal of what fear was meant to do, which was to hold you back, which was to keep you from doing the very things that you've wanted to do. It will stop you, and it is all a mindset, and it's terrible. There were fires in California, and and this is nothing compared to, what happened in Australia. But it was still like, I remember, I had to go to a national meeting, and I was so leery. I was like, as much as they said it was safe, it's like, oh, but the media was just like, oh, it's like, these wildfires, they're everywhere. Like, they're coming, they're jumping the highways. And it was just like, I don't know if I should really go to California. And then I get a call that kind of, stops me from going to California and say, it must have been meant to be, or it's all these different scenarios where fear, like, we had the massive shooting in Las Vegas, and you know, at least here in America for sure, like this wasn't what it was like when I was a kid. This stuff just started happening, and
Yeah.
it was like all these massive shootings, child sex trafficking. When I was a kid, there was, we heard of prostitution. We had, you know, we would hear like, you know, occasionally like people would get taken or kids would get kidnapped. But when you hear of lines of sex trafficking and you see what these drugs have not, you know, it used, you know, crack cocaine, heroin. We had, these are long-standing drugs, but now we have drugs that are literally killing teenagers that are being issued by their doctor.
Yeah.
You know, Oxycontin. We're talking about, you know, things that are for toothaches that are killing kids now. And I would have never imagined growing up in such a world where murder is not the worst thing anymore. Like,
Yeah, that's true. I never thought about that before. Hey, I think you're so, especially from the media, you're so thrown into all these terrible things that it kind of numbs you a bit. Like, seeing it is obviously one thing, but I say this from my own experience, is like I can't watch the news anymore. Like, I've not watched it for a long time. I just cannot. It just rubs me up the wrong way. But like, you can't escape it. Like, you see it on social media now. You see it. The news is everywhere, and it's murder this, murder that. There's been a bombing in Iraq. There's been this tragedy happened here. Somebody's died, and it's this person's fault. Or, you know, this has happened. This horrible things happen. So you get numbed to all these different things that it's like, oh, it's just another murder again, or it's just, you know, Iran's been bombed for the third time this week. Oh well, you know, it's and first of all, like, this might sound really horrible to say, but I'm not in Iran, and there's not very much I can do about Iran and what's going on over there. Like, I don't need to consume myself with what's going on with Iran. If there's something I can do to help, then yeah, I'll do something about it and I'll help. But hearing all this horrible shit that's going on numbs me to everything that's gone on around in my life. It creates this like bubble of fear, and it's like, oh shit, you know, Iran's getting bombed. It's like, fuck, you're already in that sort of fear state from hearing something like that. So then you go out into your own world, into your own community in this state of trauma, so to speak, because, you know, this is what you're used to listening to every day. So it might not be happening right next to you, but in your head it's happening. So when somebody comes along or something happens, your reaction is to overreact because you're in this fear state.
Yes.
You know, it's I wish people would focus so much more on the people that are around them. And it may sound horrible, it may sound naive, it may sound a lot of different things, but if a neighborhood, so to speak, could do something together and work together to work towards things for the people that are in that neighborhood, it achieves so much more than everybody working individually.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I can't remember a saying. It's like something like, in a time of poverty, don't build a taller fence, build a bigger table. I think it's something along those lines. I'm not sure who said it, but it's so true. It's like, if you can share to the people that are around you, share to them. Don't just build a taller fence to keep them out. You know what I mean? Don't be afraid of them. You know, the people that you live around, you see around all the time, that could potentially have gone through something that you've gone through in your life, or I've gone through in my life, and need a little bit of passion, a little bit of soul to go, you know what, man, it's okay. You know, things happen, and however traumatic they may be, you know, we can grow from them. We can overcome them. We don't have to live in the pain of them, and we can be happy. And
Right.
all it takes is just sharing that little bit of love. And
Right.
it's, again, it's, you know, it goes back to what your foundation is doing for the community that's around you. Is it's exactly that. It's, you know, like some of the things that you know, you mentioned about, you know, helping support households that, you know, have got really, really low incomes. And this is not just in your community. This is worldwide. This sort of thing happens. And, you know, I don't know about 17,000 in America, but that's minimum wage over here, less than minimum wage over here.
Wow.
So it's like, imagine trying to feed a family of 4 on that. Man, those people need help. Like, they need support. They need, you know, to know that, you know, if shit goes wrong, man, you know, you've got people that you can rely on. We'll come together
Yeah.
and we'll help you out some way. Like, you know, these things are needed. It's, no, I credit, you know, not just yourself and the people that you work with, but, you know, other people that are doing similar things to help communities like this, because, you know, especially in a community where shooting and gun crime and death is quite frequent, to then hear that, you know, people are committing suicide on top of that because they can't deal with things. It's like, man, like, what's next? You know, if we
Right.
don't help, if we don't come together and help people as a community, what happens next? Like, it's not just people taking each other's lives now, we're taking our own too, and there's no one's coming to help and support that. Like, where is this community going to go?
Right. I,
Nice.
you know, thank you, because I think a lot of people honestly feel the way that you and I do,
Hmm.
but somehow we've lost a lot of communication. Like, it's been lost in translation between a lot of different variables. But we're hoping with this organization that we create a pattern, that we start a chain, that we start something that opens people's eyes to the understanding that we can feed other people in other countries. We can, stop animal abuse. We can do a lot of things, but we are so much greater as a country, as a society, as a world, when we all look out for each other and we work together.
Hmm.
Because the truth is if you're down and I just look over it, I'm just as bad. Like, I'm just as terrible. And I think that the truth about things that are happening in communities like mine, very poor neighborhoods that, that live below the poverty lines, they're
Hmm.
suffering. They're suffering education wise. They're suffering when it comes to paying for prescription medications every day with long-term illnesses, or suffering buying insurances. I can't tell you how many kids have died and are only paying for funerals through GoFundMe. You're not
Right.
expecting your 15 to, be shot or gunned down. You're not expecting
Yeah.
for a 27-year-old mom to be killed, but that's the reality of it. And the truth is what do you do? And it's like, well, we have this funeral stipend fund. We're here to help, but we also want to be able to encourage a different mindset while we're doing these things. Like, it's one thing to go in and tackle the issue, but who are you helping mentally? And that's why I want to talk to you. And I'm glad that I've
Yeah.
talked to you and you've been me too, because no matter where we are, Australia, America, wherever, we all have this general understanding for the most part that helping each other is critical.
Hmm.
Communicating is critical. And if we let it get lost in transition, this world will go to hell. And I mean, like, with fire behind it, because what else are we here for? We're
Yeah.
not here to help, not here to love each other. Then that means we were only here to kill each other. And man, that's a tough reality that I don't think anybody wants to come to. And so we are pushing as much as we can to talk about the issues of domestic violence, man, suicide.
Yeah.
First thing when I ever saw in my own home was a suicide, was a homicide. And we're here for that. We are here for the people that don't know how to eat. There are people that are suffering with diabetes and high blood pressure. And the truth is that if you just change certain things in your lifestyle, if you just had that mindset, and we could change the society.
Yeah.
But it has to be there. The support has to be there. And we have to be able to talk about it and not be afraid to say words like pornography, sex, drugs, meth, alcohol. We cannot be afraid anymore. I think that this time now that we have is more critical than any other time, because it's like we have a chance to get a community base back.
Yeah.
This is quarantine. But I think that if we all, like, after quarantine is over, a lot of people are going to be looking for that physical interaction. It's like we got a chance to put Facebook down.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, look, with this whole coronavirus, we got a small insight into what a portion of people that are obviously suffering in somewhat from something. It doesn't have to be something big, but we saw it in the fact that when it came to a time like, well, we've got to stop importing certain foods, we've got to stop importing this, we can only, sell certain things to certain people at certain times. People went freaking mental and started hoarding everything. I saw a guy driving down the freeway here in Australia with a truckload, like a trailer load full of toilet roll. And it's like, it's just sheer fear and panic. And it's like, what about the poor old lady that lives down the road that only gets to go to the supermarket once every 2 weeks because, that's the only time she can really physically go out because she needs a helper or something like that. Or the family that have got, 6 kids at home that probably need a lot of toilet roll. It's as funny as it may sound. It's what about those guys? And it's if we can do that as a community, it's like, go, okay, shit's getting real.
Yeah.
But I don't need to hoard everything just because I can.
Yeah.
Maybe sharing things that you've got that other people don't have is what's going to bring this world together a little bit more, because it's, you never know, right? That one gesture, it might not be a lot. It might be a small bag of toilet roll to the right family. You never know when that support might be needed from them to you again, and they'll remember that for the rest of their days. They'll remember that, because that's generosity, that's support, it's true love for a stranger.
Yeah, and it carries on.
Yeah, and they'll be like, oh man, like, whoa, maybe we've got too many toys. Like, we've got 6 kids at home. Maybe we've got too many toys, and there's some kids now that are stuck at home that don't have any toys because they can't afford them. Let's put it up on a community page or something where we're giving away just a few toys. Yeah, it might not be something, but a lot, but you never know what it's going to mean to that one kid that's not got a lot to do.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful things can be created.
We saw it a lot here. It's almost embarrassing, a little bit, because it's just like, we are America. We do have a lot of resources, and to have seen how we would react in a panic situation was, I mean, man, now we're at a point where things are at a low, like when it comes to shortages of food. Like, we've lost, not lost, but a lot of people had to leave, like, meat packaging places that make our poultry and, pork, all those different kinds of things. They've had to stop because of cases of COVID-19. And now we're here. But a few months ago, we weren't here. And everybody panicked a few months ago, when a few months ago, everything could have been fine now. But because we were so excited about, like, you know, this fear, we're going to be quarantined and they're going to, you know, you don't know what's going to happen. The government's going to do, you just all kinds of things, you know, and it caused complete chaos. And when you go through, I mean, thank God I had like sanitizer and alcohol at the house already. But, you know, I just want to go in the store. I want to get a couple items and I can't get any Lysol. I can't get sanitizer. I can't get, you know, because people are buying not one, because you're not going to go through more than a few in a month or a couple in a month. You're just taking it now because you don't know when you'll get it again, which is not fair.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, it's like what you said. If you used it, though, to give to other people, if I saw you hoarding a bunch of diapers and you were taking them to a school or a local daycare, I could, you know, say, wow.
Yeah.
You know, or see you having a tissue and you know, you're giving it out to your community, you know, one doorstep at a time, I can say, wow. But when we commit such acts, you know, just because of the fear of what we don't know or what we don't want to come in contact with, man, the world gets really scary. And I remember when you said it, I think I don't know what I was thinking when you said it, because I was like, you know, how's everything going with the wildfires? And you're like, you know, strangely enough, like, we're running out of toilet paper. And I'm like, what? And it hadn't hit here yet, you know, nothing. It was just like, what? That makes no sense. And man, we were going down aisles, and this is across the states, where it was just empty toilet paper. The food, now I go into the stores, there's a lack of chicken, lack of, you know, just all kinds of things. And I was just like, man, Joey, how's it going over there?
Yeah, to tell you what, man, like it's actually strangely almost back to normal here again. It is weird, but it's like an unnervy, weird feeling. Hey, it's because again, the media is like reporting everywhere else in the world, like in the UK especially, you're not even allowed out of your house at the moment. It's like full lockdown the entire country.
Wow.
And then in my wife's country, she's from the Philippines, they're under martial law almost. Like the same thing, they're not allowed out of their houses. And it's like we've just started sending kids back to school, like people are going back to work, sports are starting again soon, like they're thinking about opening concerts, pubs, nightclubs and stuff. It's really surreal. Really
How
surreal.
are the cases
in our state in WA? This is going to shock you. We've got 9.
Okay. Well, I mean, I can see
9.
things coming back to normal. 9.
Yeah. 9 cases. That's like, I think we've got a population of about 4 million or something here, and it's a big state. Like our state's the biggest in Australia.
Okay.
But to have 9 is just weird. Like, because I speak to my family back home in the UK, and they're like saying, man, we have like 9 people every hour die from this thing. And it's like, we've only got 9 cases here in total. It's like, it's so surreal.
It's here. I think it's because Americans are spoiled. Like, just being completely honest. Like, we, you know, we have like, you know, these the amendments, the Constitution, and we run with it. It's just like, oh, there's a tiny loophole. Nope, we're not doing it. And it's like that for you. And here we have like this serious issue where a large majority of people are trying to take it as serious as possible. And you have this other set of people who's like, this is going to affect old people, like, you know, something like that. And the cases are climbing here. There's not one state, I don't think, that has not been affected by COVID-19. All 50 states. The highest being in the highest, the places with some of the highest populations, urban areas, which also happen to be some of, you know, the poorest areas. We talk about places in California, New York, Louisiana, Chicago. I mean, we have hundreds of thousands of people have died, you know, and a lot of it is because a lot of people just some people, like I said, take it serious, and then you have another set of people that are just like, we can do what we want. We're still gonna go to the beach. We're still gonna have fun, and it's just like,
Yeah.
then you're gonna go back to spring break.
Yes.
And Florida, by the way, that was Florida.
Yeah. Yeah, of course it was. I guess like we've been really lucky. I mean, I can't speak for the other states, but like we've been lucky over here because our leader, I don't know, they call him the premier here. I don't know what that means really, but he's like the basically the head of the state, I guess you would say. And he just basically in not the same language, just basically says, "You're doing this. I don't give a fuck." It's like I don't give a fuck if it upsets your feelings. I don't care. I don't care. I don't care if you're sensitive to it or it's gonna make you. It's like, oh, I can't go and see Susie down the street. It's like I don't care. It's like you're doing it, and that's how. And I think that's why we're in such a good place right now. Is that everyone's just gone, whoa. Nobody from the state, or there's nobody from the like government leadership's ever spoken to us like that before. Must be serious. We got to better do something about it.
Look, do not mention dictatorship or anything like it to America. We all start running around like roaches. Do not tell us what to do. We're okay. I mean, this is one of the reasons why we are where we are. I love the way our country is set up, because I think if you use the rules the right way, wow, they work really good for everybody. When you use the rules the wrong way, like the Second Amendment, it gets taken advantage of. When the freedom of speech gets taken advantage of, my God, it's insane what we end up with. We end up with, cases of COVID-19 everywhere. We end up with school shootings everywhere, mass murders, all kinds of things, because there's a little loophole.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Yes, hey, we can do it.
Yes, it's crazy. Hey, it's a crazy world.
Yeah, you'll have to come and just kind of go some places and and see how things are going. Because man, see how New York is after this.
Yeah,
that's gonna be interesting.
I follow this one girl on she's a nurse and on Instagram, and she like volunteered to go and go into New York to help out with the whole coronavirus thing. And she's obviously allowed out to travel to and from the hospital and stuff, and she's taking photos of like Times Square and things like that, and it's dead. There's not a soul in Times Square, and it's like, whoa, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's different, a little scary.
Yeah, real scary.
Everybody's now like, hey, now the aliens are coming. It's just everybody's going nuts now. It's like, okay, now what? We're all in the house. But now everybody's just looking at the sky like,
what's coming?
So it's good.
Yes. It's turned into a weird world, but it's good to be able to talk and laugh though, like to jump online with people like yourself and talk about things like this. And again, I can't remember whether I said this to you before we started or when we start during the podcast, but it's like to be able to like sit here and laugh, and no matter like what people go through in life and the troubles that we have, to be able to enjoy a moment of laughter, talk about our feelings, talk about things that we're passionate about, talk about things that hurt us, but to be able to do it in a way where we can laugh about it, I think that's so important. And it's great to have people that are doing so much beautiful work like yourself, and I'm in awe of what you're doing. It's really fantastic, really is.
Well, thank you. Just made my little heart like just a little bit.
Well, just before we wrap up, like I don't know where this is going to reach. I don't know whether it's going to reach people in your neighborhood and in my neighborhood, but obviously if it does reach for anyone close to you that you think could be that your foundation could help, where do you think they could get in contact with you?
Yeah. Okay. So the one thing is we are all over Facebook and Instagram at We Speak Foundation. And if you go online, you can plug in your and your web address and your web bar at www.wespeakfoundation.org. And that'll give you all of the things that we're doing. That'll give you a list of the things that we're doing to hopefully advance communities. And we will not stop until we have like pushed for resources and we've really got this ball rolling. One way that we want people to help out is sign up, become a member. For $10 a month, you can help our communities grow across America, and hopefully it goes global. Like, we want it to be big. We want to start a chain reaction where people say like, hey, if we can donate to help animal causes, if we can donate to help people that are in third world countries, we can definitely help the people that are right at home. And one important thing that I know a lot of people, you know, they think about it until I say, like, this can help our countries when it comes to cases, when we deal with things like COVID-19 and we have to push out monies for, you know, unemployment, we have to push out money for more, like, you know, food stamps or, you know, housing ability, just all these different things. If we help learn to sustain our communities on our own first, if we help put the financial backing that we would in anything that we cared about for $10 a month, that's Netflix, that's a Hulu, that's, you know, that's Amazon Prime almost, like, that's a lot of different things that we do just because we want, you know, that accessibility or that availability of that product. Well, if you want your community to be better, if you want to see your community grow, I advise anybody to invest in growing communities by, you know, reaching out to us. We can do it, but we ask volunteers and we want to get everybody involved. And so just, you know, look out for us, look out for We Speak Foundation. I'm always there for motivational speaking. And so just Google online and call me, you know, or email me, whichever you. We're here though, all the time. Back to you immediately. We're definitely on our way to. So
That's
thank you. So
that's awesome. Well, I've honestly, this has been a beautiful, beautiful conversation. What an awesome way to start my Saturday. I know it's Friday for you over there. It's getting late as well. It's been absolutely fantastic to have you on to, you know, to have conversations like this, and for the first time, I think, since I've been doing this, to, you know, experience and mental health from someone in a different area than like everybody I've had on the podcast so far has been face to face in my hometown. People that I've known, people that I've interacted with, even just for a moment, but we're in that same community. So to be able to understand like mental health from a different country, from different perspectives, from, you know, and still see how much in common and common thought provoking change that needs to happen in terms of the mental health industry and mental well-being just as a whole. You know, it's so good to see that we're all fighting the same battle, which is great.
Yeah, I'm in love with it. Like I said, I remember seeing you and I was like, I gotta talk to that guy. Like, he's doing some really stuff. I mean, because I mean, at first it was like, you know, F suicide, which was like, yeah, I'm with that. Like, that's awesome, you know. And it's been such a pleasure, you know, obviously hearing your side of it, because it does bring a lot of awareness, and it brings a certain element of like, aha, a light bulb us to say, are we taking the, like, you know, the proper measures, like, to implement criminal justice? Are there other alternatives? Are we watching, you know, the people that, you know, matter to us, those countries that matter to us, like Australia, like the UK, like, you know, all of that matters. And if they can do it, if they're tackling the same issues, you guys seem to be successful in a lot, you know, in some areas than we. And it's like, I'm glad to be able to be on this show and to have heard those things, because now we can say it's not just us, you know, and there are other alternatives, there are other sides to this story.
Yeah, that's so true. That's so true. All right, man. Well, let's wrap it up there. And I'd love to have you on the show again and to hear about like what you've been doing for the communities, to see you grow globally as well. So I'll have to schedule in another catch up sometime soon. we'll have a chat just between ourselves. But I mean, we'll definitely set up another podcast in the future to see where things are going and to see how it's been going on for you.
Thank you so much, Joe. You're so awesome. This time has been great. So great. Look, yeah, I'm going to be heading to bed. Meanwhile, you're probably going to have breakfast soon.
Yeah, I don't know whether you can hear in the background, but there's a certain little baby screaming its head off. So I think it's time to put on my dad hat for the day and dial down with that.
That's great news. I love that. So thank you.
Alrighty. Thanks, Kyerra.
You too. Thanks, Joey.
Thanks again, guys, for tuning into this episode of the Obsidian Project podcast. It's been great having you listen along. We'd like to thank once again our sponsors for 2020, getsome.com.au. Don't forget to use your 10% discount OP10 and our host Cafe Royale in Coburn. And now stay tuned for this important message. For those listening, or for those in need of any immediate help, please contact Lifeline on 131114 or Beyond Blue at 1300 224636 for those in Australia. Or they also have a website, beyondblue.com.au. If anyone listening to this outside of Australia, feel free to contact us at theobsidianproject.com. Our email addresses are there, and we'll direct you to the best available source in your area. Thanks very much again, guys. Show your support to anyone around you and share this podcast to anyone you think may need it.